For centuries, we've pretty much measured economic success with one single metric: growth. Is the line going up? But what if that's the wrong goal entirely? Today, we're going to dig into a pretty radical new idea called Doughnut Economics. It's a visual way to think about sustainable development. Really, it's a whole new compass for humanity in the 21st century. So here's how we're going to break it down. We're going to build this donut together piece by piece. First, we'll talk about why we even need a new economic compass. Then, we'll look at the two rings that make up the donut: the social foundation, everyone needs to live a good life, and the ecological ceiling we absolutely can't cross. Then, we'll see how that space in between them becomes the goal. Look at how this idea is actually being used. And finally, ask the big question: is this even possible? All right, first up, let's just totally reframe the way we think about what an economy is even for. At its core, Doughnut Economics just asks us to pause and rethink everything. For decades, we've been obsessed with GDP, gross domestic product, as the final word on success. This model just throws that out and says, hey, what if we aimed for something else? Something like a healthy, thriving balance? And the answer to that question is this model, which was developed by Oxford economist Kate Raworth. Instead of complicated spreadsheets and charts, she gives us this simple but really powerful image. You can kind of think of it like a life belt. The goal isn't to get bigger and bigger, it's just to keep everyone safely afloat, thriving right in that sweet spot. So let's get into the first piece of the puzzle. We're going to start right in the middle of the donut and work our way out. The inner edge of the donut? That's the social foundation. Now, this isn't some nice-to-have list. This is the absolute baseline of what every single person on this planet needs to live with dignity and have a shot at opportunity. If an economy doesn't provide these things, people fall through the cracks. They fall right into that empty hole in the middle. And these 12 foundations, they're not just random. They're actually drawn from the global consensus on what minimum standards are, the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So you see the basics in there, like food, water, and housing. But you also see these really crucial social needs, like gender equality and having a political voice. The goal is super clear: get every single person over this line.
Okay, so that's the inner boundary. But what about the outer one? This is where our planet enters the picture.
The outer ring is what's called the ecological ceiling. This whole idea comes from Earth system scientists. They've identified 9 critical processes that basically keep our planet stable and livable. If we push past these boundaries, if we, overshoot the outer crust of the donut, we risk triggering some really sudden and maybe irreversible environmental changes. These are the planet's non-negotiable life support systems. They include the big ones you hear about all the time, like climate change and biodiversity loss. But they also cover these other super critical threats, like nitrogen and phosphorus loading, that's basically runoff from farm fertilizers that creates huge dead zones in the ocean, and chemical pollution. Pushing past any one of these puts all of us at risk. Okay, so we've got the inner ring and we've got the outer ring. And when you bring them together, well, that's where the real magic of this whole model happens. Kate Raworth herself summed up the entire challenge of our century with this one simple idea: to meet the needs of all within the means of the planet. It sounds so simple, right? But what an incredibly ambitious goal that is. So the point here isn't just to avoid falling in the hole or flying off the top. The real goal is to live inside the donut. That green area you see, that's the sweet spot, a space that is both socially just and ecologically safe. And in this way of thinking, an economy is only really prosperous when it hits that delicate balance. So this all sounds great in theory, but how does it actually challenge the old ways of thinking? And more importantly, is anybody actually using it? The donut is a direct shot at the economic models of the 20th century. Traditional theory, it often just pretended the natural world didn't exist and was based on this totally simplified, fictional idea of a rational economic man. Doughnut Economics says, no, the economy isn't some separate machine. It's embedded inside society and the living world, and its whole purpose should be to help them both thrive. And believe it or not, this is not just an academic idea. The city of Amsterdam famously adopted the donut to guide its economy after the pandemic. Places from Scotland to China, and even whole countries like South Africa are using it to take a hard look at themselves. It's actually becoming a practical tool to rethink what a local or national economy can be. So how are we doing as a planet? A huge study back in 2018 looked at 150 different countries to see if any of them had made it into that donut sweet spot. The number of countries that were meeting the basic needs of their citizens without overshooting their share of the planetary boundaries was Exactly zero. Not one. Which, wow, that really shows you just how far we have to go. And that brings us to the final and most critical question. The goal is clear, but is it actually achievable? So the whole point of the donut is to give us a new compass. But critics like the economist Branko Milanovic point to a massive hurdle, just, human nature. He basically argues that the model kind of ignores a core part of what makes us tick. We tend to measure how well we're doing by comparing ourselves to our neighbors. For the donut to really work, he says, we'd have to fundamentally change our deep-seated desire for more status and more wealth. And that leaves us with the ultimate question. The donut gives us a clear destination, a safe and just space for all of humanity. But getting there, that's going to take more than a new map. It might require a fundamental shift in our values, in our politics, and in our very idea of what it means to live a good life. So, what would it really take to get us there?